So, the U.S. Marshals, they stayed on the tail of this fugitive pair. In fact, after Mr. Stinson did what he did, the U.S. Marshals actually spotted that second car, the Cadillac, the one they ditched the F-150 for, the one that Vicky was driving when she picked up the tattooed man. And wouldn't you know it, Vicky White walked out of that hotel that the U.S. Marshals were surveilling, and they saw her in a disguise, a wig. That's when they began to chase, and that's how we ended up with a high-speed chase. I want to bring in Lenny Depaul. He's a former chief inspector and commander of the U.S. Marshals Task Force. Lenny, thank you so much for being here tonight. Can you add anything to the details that we've been getting? Because I know that you've got lots of friends within the U.S. Marshals, many who are actually working this case.
Well, good evening, Ashleigh. And yeah, absolutely. I've been in touch with the Gulf Coast, the Regional Fugitive Task Force, and they were also assisted by the Great Lakes Regional Fugitive Task Force of the U.S. Marshal Service, and of course with the Sheriff's Department. But they did outstanding work. I mean, they're the best in the business when it comes to manhunting. They're the premier agency in the Department of Justice. So when they got called into this thing, 11 days ago, I mean, they hit the ground running. They tore her world upside down. That digital footprint was important and whatnot. So historically, they were looking at that trusted circle of friends, doing what fugitive investigators do well, and putting that puzzle together and connecting the dots. But when they got onto this and responded, they knew about the Cadillac, an older model Cadillac. They canvassed the area. And they found the car, and they set up on the car. They set up a perimeter, and they were watching that thing, and saw her coming out. And I believe she was in the passenger seat, and he was driving. But then they got into that car chase. Yes,
we've been trying to figure that one out, Lenny. We've been trying to figure out if she was driving or if he was driving. But that, I mean, do you know for sure whether he was actually driving at this point?
The word I got was that he was driving. Again, it's not confirmed, but that's what I'm hearing from the folks that were downrange doing the job.
Here's the big thing. We only have a very little description about what happened when the officers approached that wreck. The two fugitives are still inside. Vicky is shot and bleeding, and Casey is injured. And the U.S. Marshals who were there only reported one thing, and that is that he came out and he said, "My wife shot herself, and I didn't do it." Is there anything more you can add to that description? Other things that he said, other ways it went down? How many officers? Did they force him onto the ground? How was he injured? What were the extent of his injuries? Was he bleeding? Did he take on any additional gunfire after she shot herself? Is there anything more you know?
Well, I mean, these are all great questions. I can't confirm or deny anything you were saying right now, but you got to, and I'm sure everyone realizes that you're talking about a guy that, he's already doing a life sentence. He was looking at a death penalty if found guilty on this other case. What are they going to charge him with? Escape? He didn't care. And my concern was, was it going to be suicide by cop? Was Vicky going to become a hostage? There was a lot of things and that go through these investigators' minds when especially when you're in a car chase. I mean, things happen very quickly. So, it's the old adage, muscle memory. I mean, you revert back to your training. You're in a car pursuit. It's a felony car stop. The car flipped over. They approached it with extreme caution. Didn't know if they were armed. Did they hear the gunshots? I don't know.
So, Lenny, the reason I'm so keyed up on who was driving, the devil's in the details here, because the first thing he says when he gets out is, "My wife shot herself. I didn't do it," which immediately makes me think, I think you did. Because that wouldn't be the first thing you would think of. You would try to run, or you'd say, "I didn't do it, I wasn't driving," or something. But forensics will prove if this was a self-inflicted gunshot. It's very early to just make that pronouncement. And if they were both jumbled around and it's hard to determine who was sitting where in the car, that will be tricky. But if she was in the driver's seat and she's shot on the left-hand side, then she might have done it, probably did it herself. If she shot on the right-hand side, he very well might have shot her dead, which would be not felony murder, that would be first-degree intentional murder as well as felony murder. So those details are really important. And we're not getting any more resolution about this potential forensics investigation on whether she really did shoot herself or whether he did it, so there wouldn't be an additional witnesses.
They're going to have answers to all those questions, Ashleigh. I mean, what do they say? A dead man tells no tales. I mean, she probably would have gave up the candy store once she was interviewed, and historically what they did, how they got out, what they planned, what their plan was. I mean, she obviously orchestrated everything. Plan didn't quite work out the way she wanted it to, but what were they thinking? Where were they going? What were they doing? They ended up a couple hundred miles north of the jail, ditched one car, had mechanical problems, stole another car, and then they end up in this Cadillac. So, hey, my hat's off to James. James did a great job, and the public remained vigilant, and that was important. And you guys too. I mean, social media was fired up. It was great.
I think, they were on TV a lot, and that helps. And video surveillance nowadays helps a lot too. Lenny Depaul, thank you so much for your help tonight. And Lenny just alluded to it. A lot of questions that we would have had for Vicky White. Coming up, you probably know him as the face of this pursuit, the sheriff of Lauderdale County, who was a close friend and employer of Vicky White. Sheriff Rick Singleton joins me next. I thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.